Wichita Public Schools breakfast initiatives. Today's presentation will provide an overview of the district's 2018-19 breakfast initiatives. This item is for the board's information and discussion.
Thank you, gentlemen. You are very timely. We appreciate you. And we do have a handout that
Testing. Check.
You're
Perfect.
fine.
Great. I just want to make sure we're good. Well, good afternoon, President Logan, Vice President Brody, Superintendent Thompson, members of the board. First and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to come out here and share with you some of the information of some of the innovative things that our nutrition services department has been doing to address or help feed more students within our community. As you know, this work is part of the Support the Whole Child strategic theme, which is very important as we look at the implementation of our strategic plan. So this is part of the whole piece that we're looking at addressing as part of the strategic plan. So the importance of breakfast, I think Mr. Gilmore did a great job of talking about why breakfast is important to a lot of students within our district and our community. First of all, there's a relatively high level of need in our community. As you all know, we have a lot of students that qualify for free and reduced meal benefits, so offering this to all of our students is certainly important. There's also a lack of access in our community and a lack of healthy food access also too. But there are a lot of our high poverty areas in our community that are considered what they're called food deserts, meaning that there aren't any grocery stores within the vicinity of those schools, so offering breakfast at school adds an additional opportunity for our students to eat. The Success of Breakfast program ensures that kids get the nutrition that they need to help be better prepared for their school day. It is, and there are many studies out there that show this, that it improves performance in standardized tests, it helps with attendance, helps reduce behavioral issues, helps reduce the number of visits to the school nurse, and then also it improves the overall dietary quality for our students. It also lowers the probability of issues related to students becoming overweight and obese. So those are just a few of the highlights in terms of why school breakfast is so important to many of our students.
As you can see, 6 states, including Kansas, were awarded grants to reduce childhood hunger and increase academic success by expanding access to school breakfast. The school breakfast program ensures that kids get the nutrition they need to learn and succeed in school. A student who eats a school breakfast is more likely to do better on standardized tests, attend class more frequently, and have fewer behavioral issues. They're also more likely to consume critical vitamins and minerals, as well as more milk and fruit compared to students who eat elsewhere. Kansas focused on increasing breakfast participation by 5% via alternative breakfast delivery models. No Kid Hungry hosted a school breakfast leadership initiative for a select number of state teams to develop a plan to expand access to school breakfast. The Institute brought together stakeholders who can influence school breakfast policy and practice in their state, including gubernatorial policy advisors, staff in state education agencies, state and local food and nutrition service directors, state superintendents. Participants increase their knowledge about school breakfast operations and the most effective tactics for expanding access. Alternative breakfast models, as Mr. Gilmore stated, include but not are necessarily limited to breakfast in the classroom, breakfast after the bell, or second chance breakfast, and then grab and go breakfast or breakfast using some type of a mobile cart perhaps in an alternative location from where the cafeteria is currently. And so back when this grant came out, KSD identified counties, districts, and individual schools in which breakfast participation was relatively low as compared to lunch participation, and encouraged districts to focus their efforts on those schools with larger participation gaps. Nutrition Services acted right away, and I just wanted to review with you our approach when we started implementing schools. I have a handout here for you that I will pass out in just a moment that kind of will show a timeline and tell a story of where we started and where we are today, and how the breakfast average daily participation changed over time. And so we assessed KSTE's list of identified schools. We assessed additional opportunities, schools with high free and reduced percentages and where breakfast participation could be further improved. We prioritized our schedule for implementation, and we took an individualized approach by meeting individually with principals to ensure buy-in, making sure that their needs were met, discussed logistics and set implementation dates, purchased our mobile carts, laptops for point of service, developed marketing and merchandising materials, and adjusted staffing. So it's not like you just wake up the next day and say, okay, we're going to do alternative breakfast at a school. There is some planning that's involved. There may be some changes needed to master schedules in some cases, as well as certainly operational and logistical modifications such as staffing, food purchasing, location of satellite serving areas, etc. We implemented one school at a time to make sure that we could provide necessary supports and to ensure that operationally all was well before we moved along to the next school. Because if we implemented at a school, things didn't go so well, that news will get out and principals will tell their peers, and you want to kind of stay away from that whole thing. So listed here are current alternative breakfast delivery models used at Wichita Public Schools. So far, our implementation methods have included taking food to the students by strategically placing mobile carts in areas where students congregate or where they're passing from class to class, offering second chance breakfast between first and second hours, or sometimes a combination of all of the above, depending on the school and what their needs are. Extending breakfast serving times. We've done that at a few schools, including Curtis and Cloud Elementary. Running limited time offered promotions, and we've begun just when we came back from school last week, piloting breakfast in the classroom for all sixth graders at Coleman Middle School. And so we think that thus far we've had some really good successes. I'd like you to, what Fabian is passing out is a sheet that I keep updated a minimum of monthly. And so I have various tabs for our first month, second month, third month, et cetera, of school. And it's really great to see the increases in average daily participation. For this particular slide, we broke down the middle school data. We have another one following about high school. But the sheet that you have is data collected through December 18th. So relatively current. We've missed a week, but actually it was only three school days. So you can see I've got the school listed. Their 2017-18 average daily participation, that's BADP, breakfast average daily participation. And then 2018-19, that is year to date thus far. And you'll see, well, Brooks is 7%. That doesn't look all that significant. Well, we actually started that program in August of 2016, and we've continued to take that and grow the program over time, adding carts, moving carts to the second floor, adding staff to cover those changes. And so the comments box will tell you all of those different things. So at North High School, for example, we started with a few carts. I believe it was 2 carts during the normal school day, the normal breakfast period. Then we went to breakfast after the bell, or second chance breakfast, and had 4 carts. Well, then we added a 5th cart, and so we're constantly massaging and trying to make improvements at every school. And so the comments box really tells the story. And then the next column to the right, you'll see the targeted or identified schools by KSCE, and then those schools that we added. And then, like I said, we expanded the program at Brooks over time. Brooks actually was doing approximately 100 breakfasts per day prior to the start of Second Chance Breakfast, and now they're up over 300. So it's a threefold increase actually since they started doing breakfast after the bell. I showed their record because our school managers kind of get pumped. There's generally an email exchange between our secondary managers and me and our secondary supervisor, Jeff Faulkner, and then we're all kind of competitive. So we like to share these numbers, and I'll point out that North High School served 801 school breakfasts on November 5th. And that's really mind-boggling if you look at their average daily of 296 a year ago. So keep in mind that as time goes on, well, if we were looking to August data, it might not look as impressive, only in that we have that one day, the first day of school, where we just have the ninth graders. And so that kind of skews our data negatively, but as time goes on, obviously that will.
And as you can see by the numbers, I mean, the target by KSD was 5%. So most of these schools are well exceeding that average. As a matter of fact, David heard back from KSDE last week. They're tracking schools that are the most improved throughout the state, and 3 of our schools are in the top 5 list of the most improved in the state. So even KSD is taking note of the phenomenal work that David and his team are doing to help increase our student participation options.
Thank you. And we're having a contest for the month of January. All the middle school and high school managers are having a contest to see who can best continue to improve their average daily participation, both as a percentage of enrollment and a percent increase over last year. And so the winners will have fabulous prizes, such that are okay by federal standards. And so wanted to share that with you all. That's kind of fun. We like to try to keep our work fun. So did we show the high school slide? Very good. And so our next step, again, this is not a static project. This is going to evolve and grow over time. So we still have a few elementary principals that we need to meet with very soon that were not on the targeted list, but we feel there's a good opportunity. Work with elementary and secondary office to explore scheduling ideas for expansion. And really, we're in the process of gathering data from the schools now. We want to see, okay, we see that the numbers are going up, but what about the test scores? What about attendance? What about tardiness? The things that really matter in this educational environment, are these efforts doing in Wichita what they are doing elsewhere? And so that's what's really important to us ultimately. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
I appreciate you saying that this is not a static process, because it is something obviously that's changing almost daily. I did have a couple quick questions. First off, so when we don't have any hard data yet on whether we are improving test scores or if this is helping in various areas. We do not have that yet, correct?
That's correct.
And when do we anticipate having that type of information?
I reached out to the principals last week.
Okay. Okay.
And to Mr. Alvarez and Robert as well.
Okay. If you just let the board know when we have kind of a timeline on when we think we might be able to start getting that information, that would be helpful. Quick question on Brooks, since it's our longest running program. How close are we to serving all the students, since that's been in place since 2016? How close are we to serving all the students that qualify for reduced or free lunch?
Well, free and reduced lunch is available to all students. We don't have any programs in place currently, such as, I think he's referring to CEP.
No. Well, I think we're serving, 308 kids, so we're serving about 50% of the kids, a little bit above that, I think. Yeah, for breakfast.
And all those kids obviously qualify for free and reduced lunch. Not all our students.
Not all of these students in your ADP columns are necessarily free or
That's what I'm
reduced.
saying.
There could be
So
some paid there as
Of all the
well.
students at Brooks that qualify for free and reduced lunch, how many of them, we're up to 308, 364, how many more are we still not getting breakfast to? Do we know that?
We don't have those numbers in front
I
of us.
don't have that every school's enrollment with me.
Right.
But
And
Fabian,
I
I think
realize
you
that's not a
indicated
static
about
number
half.
either.
I'm s-
And I realize that's not a static number either, that changes.
Sure,
but
sure.
My point is, are we getting to the point where we're getting every student that we should be getting to? Since that's the longest running program.
That's a good question.
We continue to increase, and we'll continue to see increases, but I don't know that we're there yet.
Okay. And then,
I don't know if every child will really ever eat breakfast in any school.
Right,
A
that's
lot
what-
of children, and there are some cultural things in the community, they prefer to eat at home with their parents.
Right,
And
even-
so, I don't know if we'll ever
Yeah,
be,
so even
I'd
if-
love to be at 100%.
yeah, even if you have food insecurity, doesn't mean that you're going to need breakfast every single day.
Sure.
And I realize that, and I wasn't trying to imply that we
Right,
have
I
to hit
understand.
100%. I was just curious if the effort at Brooks, since that's the longest running program, if we're getting closer to reaching the students we are supposed to reach.
I would say yes.
Yes.
If we can get, if that information, and then last question, and it's kind of the biggie, how much does the alternative breakfast plan cost, and how's that split up between grants, local, state, federal? I'm assuming there's no private dollars in there, but maybe, who knows, maybe there is. And then a lead into that is, how much would it cost to implement breakfast for all students like we have our summer lunch program that is, as you know, our summer lunch program, any child can show up at our school and get a lunch. How much would it cost to run a program, and I'm not advocating that we do this, I'm just wanting to know what the costs are to do that style. If we worked out the logistics of how we got breakfast to every student at every school and took away the stigma of, oh, that student qualifies for free breakfast because they're poor. If we can take that stigma away, like we have with the lunch summer program, how much would that cost us?
That, honestly, we don't have.
Yeah,
those-
I realize
We could almost look at it on a, cost per meal basis for breakfast, lunch, supper. We cost out our menus, and granted, things change based on produce prices, which change every week. But then your first question was,
yeah, how much is it costing us now, and how is it paid for? And I'm taking out of that question, though I think it needs to be answered later on, but I'm taking out of that question things like time, logistics, which I realize both those cost money as well. And maybe superintendent,
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in here because you're asking a question that would include things such as carts being purchased, laptops for
Right.
POS, developing marketing plan, merchandise material, adjusting staff, which means adding additional staff.
Right.
So you would have to take each individual school individually to look at that and what that cost would be. So that's something that would take some time for us to figure that out.
do you think,
And I'm not sure exactly, are you asking, making sure we're clear, you're talking about us feeding all kids, how much money would it cost for us to feed all kids, all meals?
Right. Well, not.
Is that what you're asking?
Not dinner, breakfast, and lunch.
Okay, because we serve supper as well.
Oh, okay.
I have some information
But that's
which
a good-
might
I mean,
help.
I'm just trying to understand what
Right.
you're asking.
That's a good benchmark to know what it would cost, so that when the public asks us questions about this, we have good benchmarks on, well, if the public wants this, or if you want this, this is what it's gonna cost. And do we have a feel for what we're spending on this breakfast initiative now? Does Susan?
I would,
Honestly, that's not anything that we're prepared to answer at this point. I mean, I think if you want to get those questions to Dr. Thompson
Well-
or to to Mr. Willoughby, then we can,
Well, I think, yeah.
Stan, if you want to make a
Yes.
request maybe on your.
At the next, I think at the next board meeting,
Well, if
oh.
we're able to get all of it, all the information by
No.
then, but if you can just make the request, and then we can find
Okay.
out how long it's going to take for staff to
And
do
it-
that, and then we can do from
Okay.
there, if that's something.
Do we have that form with us today, Mike? Okay.
Stan, and Dr. Thompson, remind me if I'm wrong, but I think we had this conversation a couple of years ago when we talked about feeding all kids regardless of free and reduced or not. And maybe you remember, we don't have the capacity to feed every child in our district breakfast and lunch. Is that something that we talked about before? That we would actually have to add facility?
very likely. We service a great percentage of our students currently, especially for lunch. Because we offer something to all students, again, doesn't mean that they are going to necessarily participate. But yes, we are in a facility that was built in the mid-'70s to serve 13,000 lunches. There wasn't even a breakfast program then. And we are pushing 45,000 equivalent meals a day currently. So 45, 13, nothing much has changed within the food production center. So,
Ernestine?
I'm making the assumption that at these places, for example, that you have the second chance and the cart lunches, that any child, that you don't have a list that you check them off whether or not they're qualifying for free and reduced or whether they're not, that any child can go and get a lunch, some food when they
we
need
have regulations, of course, about overt identification of students and their identities and their free and reduced status. And so now, if you go to an elementary school, a kid comes, gets his lunch, there's someone at the computer, taps his picture on the computer screen, and that's it. No one really sees anything else. So, yes.
And that's the same thing for this program. So, for example, at Brooks, presumably, all of the kids at Brooks could participate in this
Sure,
breakfast program right
absolutely.
now, as they are, or at any of these schools.
Strongly encouraged, every day.
And I missed something I think you said at the very beginning. How does the KSDE pick which schools are, is it a certain percentage of the students that are qualified for free and reduced? Is that?
Those schools were targeted based on, and I think Mr. Gilmore addressed this a little bit as well. So the goal was to have 70% of those children who eat lunch also eat breakfast. And so if that gap was wide, those were the schools that were selected.
Okay, so we've
So
got
we had
others,
10.
we have other schools that have students that are on that, that are qualify for free and reduced, but they're not currently on our
Correct.
program, but we might build that into
Sure,
the next and the
absolutely.
next and the
Yep.
next and so on and so forth, because all of those children, I'll bet anything, would enjoy having breakfast available,
Absolutely.
or at least a goodie to take with them when they go
And
to.
I do want to make clear that we do make breakfast available at every one of our schools. Every single one of our schools has a traditional breakfast before school
Right.
program. This is above and beyond what is currently being offered.
Yeah, thank you for making that clear. I didn't want to, yes, we do have the breakfast
Sure,
available for
absolutely.
any kid. But I was thinking about this is such a great idea And the whole thing about some kids really just aren't hungry right at the first thing in the morning, and they get hungry about an hour in, and if they're in class. How has this been accepted by teachers when they've had some eating in the classroom?
I have heard nothing negative whatsoever. I try to touch base with principals as often as I can just to see how things are going at their schools. I know that I reached out to Mr. Hudson at West after we implemented his school. This is, by the way, the order in which we implemented, and we implemented at West first, even though it wasn't a targeted school. And
Well,
all is well.
I'm not
from what we know.
surprised, because I know of a teacher at a school that's not on this list, and she keeps food in her classroom because of kids needing to have nutrition sometime later in the day. And so I know that teachers are aware that their kids are hungry.
And what school would that be? Or
I
do
don't
you
want to
to
tell.
You can tell me later. Because that's just it. I mean, we could be serving a reimbursable meal with the nutrients that kids need to keep them going, getting reimbursed, and then that teacher times how many thousands wouldn't have to take that money out of their pocket.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening now, is that there are teachers that are taking it out of their pocket because they see those kids so hungry, and it wasn't available. But I'm glad that we're expanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
When we talk about costs of the program, one of the things that I see is and I wonder, is, you know, when you have kids and you have food in a classroom or in a hallway or someplace away from the cafeteria, are we seeing an increase in cost with janitorial because we're having food in trash cans or on the floor or spilling milk or those types of things?
We have an agreement with the custodial department, and I don't have all the details right off the top of my head, but we have an agreement with them where Nutrition Services actually pays for the trash bags at one level or the other, maybe both. We do, and so I would say, if so, not significant.
Okay. And you talk about a breakfast grant. Is that a 1-year grant, a 5-year grant, or what's going to happen?
I think it's a one-time grant.
What happens when that grant money goes away? What do we
We keep going.
keep going?
We got $5,000, and this is a $27 million enterprise. So we bought 2 laptops for our point of service stations at North High School, which was nice. We considered that a bit of a gift.
So basically, the grant's paying for hardware for us to do this, but no food
No
to
food.
put in kids' mouths?
No food. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
And it sounds like the grant didn't come anywhere close to covering even the expenses for the 13 schools that you implemented this program in.
10 so far, but we're still working that list, Ms.
Oh, okay, so
But
when I
yes,
saw
yeah.
the 3 added, I thought that meant you went from the 10 to the 3. I mean, 10
But
to
we
13.
do get reimbursed on a per meal rate for every meal we serve, breakfast, lunch, and snack. So we cannot run the program to be in a deficit per board policy. So we're not terribly worried if it's costing more money because we're bringing in more money.
Okay, so let me back up because we seem like we got fairly close to trying to answer my question. How much was the grant for?
$5,000 we receive.
It was 5,000?
$5,000.
The grant to get a 5% increase was for $5,000.
$5,000. See an echo in here?
Yeah.
Mike, do not put in the minutes what my facial expression was at that moment. Yes, yeah.
This is startling. All right. First of all, thank you very much for this presentation. And I'm very proud to be a part of a district that reaches out and tries to help kids any way we can. And we all know breakfast is important. We also know, just as you said, that not every child is going to eat at school because many parents want their children to eat at home with them. And that's perfectly, we love that. That's great. But the fact that we already have both breakfast and lunch at every single one of our schools, this is the frosting on the cake that's really pushing us to get a little better. I also really like the fact that you're implementing one school at a time and bringing the staff in as part of that solution. No one school looks exactly the same as in any other school. And that's the way you make it work. So thank you for doing that. And also the fact that we're continuing to expand. You know, we know we're not there yet. We can tell by the percentages that we have a lot of kids who really are hungry and are now being served. So, you know, as we move down the road a year from now, 2 years from now, I would expect that our figures will look much different. And I think we have the same goal as the Appleseed Group and KSDE and everyone else. We want our kids to be fed so that they can learn at school. So we appreciate very, very, very much your extra effort to do this for us, and we appreciate this report. Thank you.